Texas just posted its first statewide year-over-year home price decline in over a decade, and almost nobody outside the industry is talking about it. But here's what the statewide median isn't telling you. That number blends cities in genuine trouble with cities doing just fine, and it hides which is which. If you're buying, selling, or just haven't checked your equity since 2022, the state average is close to useless to you. This one's for buyers timing an entry, sellers wondering why their listing won't move, and owners overdue for a reality check. Today, we're counting down 10 Texas cities where home prices are stalling or quietly cracking right now. Number 10. Killeen. Home to Fort Cavazos, the largest active-duty military installation in the country by population. Homes here are sitting on the market for 69 to over 100 days, depending on the neighborhood, according to local market data circulating through Bell County agents this year, and the median sale price is hovering around $228,000. Killeen sold itself as the affordable, stable alternative to Austin and DFW, a town where a soldier's basic allowance for housing could actually stretch into ownership instead of just covering rent. For years, that pitch worked. On a $228,000 home sitting on the market for 100 days instead of 30, a seller isn't just losing time. They're often accepting 2, 3, sometimes 4 rounds of price reductions just to get a contract, which on a modest home can mean giving up $10,000 or $15,000 they never planned on losing. The root causes stack up fast. Fort Cavazos deployment cycles create housing demand that swings hard in both directions. New construction along W.S. Young Drive and out toward Rancier Avenue has outpaced the town's ability to absorb it. And military families rotating out don't always sell. Plenty just convert to rentals, which quietly floods the resale market with competition. The nuance here matters. Killeen isn't dying because the base isn't going anywhere, and that gives it a floor most towns don't have. But floors aren't the same as growth. This is a market held up by a single institution, and that's not the same thing as a healthy one. Number 9. Corpus Christi. If you think 100 days on market is rough, wait until you see what overbuilding looks like on the coast. Number 9 is Corpus Christi. The Texas Real Estate Research Center's Summer 2026 housing report described a statewide pattern of listings sitting far longer without buyers and sellers cutting prices sharply to compensate. And Corpus Christi is one of the clearest examples of that pattern along the Gulf. This city sold itself on refinery jobs, port expansion, and beachfront lifestyle at a fraction of what you'd pay in Florida or California. That story pulled in buyers from Ocean Drive condos all the way out to Flower Bluff. Translate that into dollars, and on a $290,000 home, even a modest 5% price cut to attract a buyer is $14,500 out of a seller's pocket. Money a lot of these families were counting on for their next down payment. 3 things are driving this. Insurance premiums along the coast have climbed sharply as carriers reprice for hurricane risk, and that cost gets passed straight to buyers' monthly payments, shrinking what they can afford. New construction inventory built during the pandemic rush is still working through the pipeline, adding supply right as demand cools, and refinery and port employment, while stable, isn't growing fast enough to absorb the housing that got built for a boom that only partially arrived. Here's the honest complication. The port of Corpus Christi is still expanding, and that's a real long-term anchor most coastal towns would kill for. This isn't a city in freefall. It's a city that built for a party that showed up smaller than expected. Number 8. Round Rock. Same story, different zip code, one extra problem. Round Rock. Homes here are now averaging over 100 days on market, and prices are down roughly 3.5% year over year, with a median sale price around $387,000. For a decade, Round Rock ran one simple pitch: get Austin's job market and Dell's paycheck without Austin's price tag. That worked beautifully when Austin was surging. It stops working the moment Austin itself starts correcting, because the whole premise was relative affordability, and relative affordability collapses when the thing you're comparing yourself to gets cheaper too. On that $387,000 median, a 3.5% decline is about $13,500 gone in a single year. Not catastrophic, but enough to erase the instant equity buyers were promised when they signed at the top. The causes are tightly linked to its neighbor. Dell's campus along I-35 has gone through rounds of layoffs and hiring freezes that ripple straight into local housing demand. Austin's own correction is pulling the rug out from under the cheaper alternative pitch, and builders kept adding new subdivisions west toward Old Settlers Park well after the migration wave that justified them had already peaked. The nuance? Round Rock still has genuinely strong schools and a real diversified employer base beyond Dell, which is more than a lot of suburbs can say. But a city built on being the discount option doesn't have anywhere to hide when the full-price option gets cheaper right next door. Number 7, Odessa. And here's a stat that should stop you. Inventory in Odessa jumped roughly 43% in a single quarter this year, even as headline median prices barely moved. That gap is the story. Odessa built its identity entirely on the Permian Basin. About 1 in 5 jobs in this region trace back to oil and gas, the highest concentration in the country. And for over a decade, that meant housing demand that could turn on a dime with the price of crude. When inventory floods 43% higher without a matching price collapse, it means the market has split into 2 tiers: homes priced correctly that still move, and overpriced holdovers from the boom years that are quietly rotting on the MLS. On a typical $250,000 Odessa home, that split can mean the difference between selling in 3 weeks or sitting for 4 months, while a neighbor's identical house closes fast because they priced it right the first time. The causes are almost entirely energy-driven. Major operators like Chevron have cut rig counts dramatically, down from 21 rigs to 6 in this basin in just a few years, while still producing more oil through longer horizontal wells, meaning fewer jobs per barrel. Capital expenditure budgets across the industry got more conservative heading into this year. And unemployment, while still low at around 3.5%, is a lagging indicator. Hiring has already slowed well before layoffs would show up in that number. The nuance: this is a boom-bust town that's been through this cycle before and always finds a floor. Because oil never fully leaves West Texas, you can still buy here. The question is whether you should buy at boom-era pricing for a market that's clearly not booming anymore. Number 6, Midland. Same basin, same math, a few miles up the highway. Midland posted a 1.4% price dip this spring, modest on paper, but paired with hotel occupancy down 5.6% year over year. And hotel occupancy is one of the best early signals for oil field contractor activity, because those crews live in extended stay rooms before they ever buy a house. Midland told itself and everyone watching that it had diversified beyond oil. It hasn't, not really. On the area's roughly $325,000 median home, a 1.4% dip is only about $4,500. The number itself isn't scary. What's scary is the trajectory underneath it. The causes are structural, not cyclical this time. Operators are drilling 4-mile horizontal wells that recover more oil with fewer people, which means production keeps rising while local employment doesn't follow the way it used to. Builders converted a wave of unsold spec inventory into rentals over the past 2 years, which suppresses the for-sale market's true depth. And capital spending decisions made in corporate offices in Houston and Midland alike are increasingly conservative, prioritizing shareholder returns over basin expansion. Here's the honest counterpoint. Midland County unemployment is still just 2.9%, genuinely low. And that's not a market showing distress yet. It's a market showing the early edges of it. The math worked for a while, then the rig count started shrinking, and the math got quieter about it. Number 5, Frisco. If you thought Oil Town math was rough, wait until you see it wearing a luxury price tag. Number 5 is Frisco, home to the Star, Legacy West, and Toyota's North American headquarters. Arguably the single most successful suburban rebrand in Texas over the last 15 years. Median sale prices here sit near $650,000. And even that price tier is now posting year-over-year declines, with homes spending noticeably more time on market than during the 2021 to 2022 peak. Frisco sold the fantasy of Dallas Cowboys headquarters as your neighbor, a Fortune 500 relocation hub, and new build everything. For years, that fantasy justified almost any price. On a $650,000 home, even a modest 2% pullback means $13,000 evaporating. Real money, even at this income level, and a signal that high earners are just as rate sensitive as everyone else right now. Three forces are at work. Mortgage rates sitting in the mid-6% range hit dollar-for-dollar affordability harder at higher price points than people assume, because the monthly payment swing on a $650,000 loan is enormous compared to a $300,000 one. Corporate relocation pace has slowed from its 2021 peak as companies pause expansion plans amid broader economic caution. And builders kept greenlighting new luxury subdivisions north along the Dallas North Tollway, well past the point where demand could absorb them at asking price. The complication: Frisco's underlying employer base, especially Toyota and the corporate campuses around it, is genuinely durable. And that's not nothing. Prices remain strong here compared to almost anywhere else on this list, but strong isn't the same as unstoppable, and Frisco just found that out. And hey, if any of this is making you rethink a move you were about to make, that's kind of the point of this channel. So subscribing means you'll actually see the next city breakdown, instead of hoping the algorithm remembers you exist. Back to the list. Number 4, San Antonio. And this is where I want to slow down for a second, because behind these numbers are real families. San Antonio home values are down roughly 3% year over year, with inventory up double digits and the outer ring of the metro. The newer construction pushed out past Loop 1604 into Alamo Ranch and Stone Oak, absorbing most of the pressure. San Antonio marketed itself as the affordable, family-friendly alternative to both Austin and Houston, anchored by USAA, HEB's headquarters, and one of the largest military footprints in the state through Joint Base San Antonio. On a $270,000 median home, a 3% decline works out to about $8,100. Not a huge number on paper, but for a family that put down $15,000 or $20,000 to buy in 2022, that's a meaningful chunk of their equity cushion gone, and some of these buyers genuinely can't refinance or sell without bringing cash to closing. That's not a statistic. That's a family stuck. The causes are specific. Insurance costs across San Antonio and the broader Hill Country have climbed sharply as carriers price in Texas's growing hail and wildfire risk. The outer ring subdivisions built fastest during the pandemic are exactly where oversupply is concentrated now, and the reversal of pandemic-era in-migration has slowed the buyer pool that was absorbing all that new construction. Here's the nuance that keeps this from being a hit piece. Closer in, established neighborhoods are holding value far better than the outer ring, and San Antonio remains one of the most affordable big city entry points left in Texas. You can still find real value here. You just have to know which ring of the city you're buying into. Number 3, Dallas-Fort Worth. If San Antonio's slide feels significant, brace yourself, because the next one is the biggest metro in the entire state. Number 3 is Dallas-Fort Worth, and it's currently posting the sharpest year-over-year price decline of any major Texas metro, down around 4.1%. This is the metro with American Airlines, Toyota's headquarters in Plano, Lockheed Martin's Fort Worth operations, and a relocation ad machine that never stops running. On the DFW median of roughly $400,000, a 4.1% decline works out to about $16,400 gone in a single year. On the metro that Texas leans on hardest to prove the whole state's growth story, the causes are layered. Corporate relocation announcements have slowed from their 2021 to 2022 peak as companies digest the workforce they already added. New construction along corridors like I-635 and out through Collin and Denton counties kept coming online even as buyer demand cooled, which is the same overbuilding pattern showing up across half this list. And affordability has quietly eroded even in a metro without California-level prices, because incomes haven't kept pace with what homes cost now compared to 5 years ago. The honest complication: Fort Worth Arlington specifically is starting to show tentative signs of stabilizing, with its price declines narrowing even as Dallas proper keeps softening. Proof that DFW as a single metro number is hiding two different stories, the exact problem this whole video is built around. The median might be sliding across the metro, but Fort Worth and Dallas are living two very different versions of that same headline. Quick pause, because I mean this one sincerely. If you've made it this far, you clearly care more about getting this right than most people buying a house in this state right now. And subscribing costs nothing, and helps this channel keep doing the unglamorous work of pulling city-level data instead of repeating whatever the State Realtor Association wants you to believe. Okay? 2 left. Number 2, Houston. Number 2 is the one that should genuinely surprise you. Houston. This is the metro that spent the last 2 years being called the exception, the big Texas city with an outlier positive trend, boosted by Exxon and Chevron's headquarters presence, the energy corridor along Katy Freeway, and NASA's Johnson Space Center, anchoring steady, well-paying employment. And yet, the Texas Real Estate Research Center's own March 2026 data showed Houston prices falling 1.6% year over year, with median seller price cuts averaging $15,500. That's not the Houston most people think they're getting when they read the national headlines. On a $340,000 median home, 1.6% down is about $5,400 in lost value. Small compared to Austin, but the direction matters more than the size right now, because Houston wasn't supposed to be moving this way at all. The causes are quieter than oil town collapses or tech hub corrections. Affordability has eroded even in America's most affordable major metro, because mortgage rates hitting mid-6% hurt every price point, not just the expensive ones. Inventory rose nearly 10% year over year as the pandemic-era construction pipeline kept delivering homes into a cooling buyer pool. And Houston's sheer size means it's absorbing softness from every direction. Energy sector caution, national rate pressure, and slower in-migration all at once. Here's the nuance that matters most. Houston still posted broadly positive sales growth and remains genuinely more affordable than Austin, Dallas, or San Antonio on a dollar per square foot basis. This isn't collapse. It's the exception losing its exception status, one data point at a time. Number 1, Austin. Number 1 on this list is the city that real estate analysts called crash-proof as recently as 2023. Austin. And the number here is the one that should end any argument about whether statewide averages tell you anything useful. Austin's typical home value has fallen roughly 24.5% from its May 2022 peak, one of the largest declines of any major U.S. metro over that stretch. City proper prices were down nearly 7% year over year as of this spring. Homes are averaging around 81 days to go pending, and the median seller price cut has reached $25,000. More than 5%, shaved directly off the original asking price. Austin sold the single most compelling pitch in the entire state. California salaries, Texas taxes, live music, breakfast tacos, and Tesla's Gigafactory plus Apple, Samsung, and Oracle all expanding or relocating within the metro. That pitch was real. It just got priced in about 3 years too fast. On a home that sold for $650,000 at the 2022 peak, a 24.5% decline means roughly $159,000 in value has evaporated. Not a rounding error, an amount that erases a down payment entirely for buyers who closed at the top out in the Domain or East Riverside corridor. The causes stack cleanly. Pandemic-era migration pulled forward years of demand into 18 frantic months, and that demand simply isn't there to repeat. Inventory has climbed over 7% year over year while new construction kept delivering supply built for a growth rate that already ended. And Austin's price-to-income ratio got so stretched at the peak that even strong tech salaries couldn't keep up without a correction, eventually forcing the math back into balance. Here's the real complication. And it's an important one. Austin's population growth is still outpacing nearly every other major Texas metro. Corporate relocations haven't stopped, and most housing economists project prices bottoming out sometime between late 2026 and mid-2027 before resuming modest appreciation. The city everyone called bulletproof got a very public correction. It didn't get erased.